RX Television on RxMuscle.com. This is Ask Dave, better known as hashtag Ask Dave, your 30-minute question and answer show with Dave Palumbo here on RxMuscle.com, brought to you by Species Nutrition. Visit speciesnutrition.com. I'm your host, Sadiq Faruqi. Glad you can join us on this 11th day of January in the year 2017. Once again, 30-minute question and answer show with Dave Palumbo. Your question on diet, training, supplementation, IFBB pros, competitions, the upcoming Arnold 2017, that and anything else that is on your mind. As we now bring up Dave Palumbo from the Cape Coral Studios down in sunny Florida. Dave, you have quite the busy next few weeks upcoming. This weekend, you're heading out to the West Coast for your next Guru seminar, and then in say about 17 days, Bros versus Pros back here on Long Island.
Yeah, it's going to be a whirlwind tour for me. I go out to San Diego on Friday. I will see Derek Farnsworth Friday afternoon. He will massage me for 2 hours. That's part of my deal with him in organizing this course. And on Saturday, all day I will be teaching. Hopefully I won't be too beat up from Derek for 10 hours. The class is actually full. I let I think one person in who contacted me. If probably I could let one more person in, because what happened was we didn't have enough chairs. That's how many people really wanted to do the course. We were over 20 people, which I was going to limit it to 20, but then people were begging me to come in, so I let him in. Derek and I had to rent chairs, so now we have more chairs, so we could probably get a couple more people in. If anyone's still interested and they want to come to this weekend, Saturday, the Secrets of Becoming a Diet Guru course at Hardcore Fitness in San Diego, California, you can contact me, or you can sign up on the DavePalumbo.com website. It's going to be a great course. I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of my clients there, a lot of cool people. Louis Uredell will be there. Pete Ciccone will be there. Obviously, Derek and his wife will be there. And you never know who else. I know Quincy Roberts is coming all the way from North Carolina there, too. He's he runs a couple shows out in North Carolina. He's been competing for probably 50 years, this guy. He's amazing. So it's going to be a great weekend. And then, of course, 2 weeks after that, we will be, Johnny and I, in New York for Bros vs. Pros 29 at Deer Park ProFit Gym, hosted by Alex Luker there. And that's going to be a huge, big shindig. And I'll get to see my dad. I haven't seen him in like 2 months since I moved. And, I'll get my teeth cleaned. That'll be the excitement for the weekend.
Of course, the Arnold Classic 2017 coming up. Right now, if you go to our Instagram page, we just posted a funny picture that Josh Lenardowitz sent us. It's a conversation featuring him, Cedric McMillan, Dallas McCarver, three of the more notable names at this upcoming Arnold USA. And earlier today, it was a hilarious conversation. Go check it out. But Dave, last week on Iron Debate, we talked about the upcoming Arnold Classic essentially being Cedric versus the field, and the field being Dallas McCarver, Lionel Bayecki, Michael Lockett. But now Josh Lenardowitz, who had a very impressive showing last year in his debut appearance at the Arnold, has confirmed to RxMuscle that he is going to be competing at the Arnold USA as well as his hometown Arnold, Australia. Quickly, how do you see that shaking up the field? Do you see him as a wild card in the 2017 field?
I think Josh is certainly a top 5 contender. Assuming he comes in with his trademark, conditioning and fullness and roundness. I don't see him not making the top 5. I don't think he could beat a Cedric McMillan who's in shape. Having said that, I think that he can knock off some of the other guys for certain. He could definitely beat a Fouad. I think he can definitely beat a Michael Lockett. He's more complete. He's got better legs. Can he beat Juan Morel? I don't know. If Juan's at his best, that would be hard. But he definitely can beat him if Juan is not at his best. And I'm assuming Juan taking that extra time off last year to kind of recover, let his body grow, is going to probably be coming back pretty strong this year. So it's hard to predict where people fall. I see Josh top 5, probably top 4 in that lineup. But it's certainly not good news for the rest of the field, because I'm sure a lot of these guys are already saying, oh, I got a 4th place, I can make this much money. Josh is certainly going to add a bit of wow to that lineup, and it's great to see that he's jumped in. I don't know what made him wait so long. Maybe he wasn't invited. Maybe they didn't know he was interested in being invited. I'm glad to see him in the lineup, however.
If you want to join in, you can ask your question on the Muscle Central forum on RxMuscle.com. If you're not already a member, it is free to register. If you're watching us live on YouTube, and if it's your first time, we ask that you subscribe, hitting the button below. Like this episode, we will continue to provide more episodes such as this, as well as a wide variety of content. You can ask your question on the chat box on the right-hand side, on our official Facebook page, Instagram, and on Twitter. And Johnny, our producer, are we live right now on Instagram? So we are. He's giving the thumbs up. So if you're watching us live on Instagram, again, we welcome you on Instagram as well. This episode is only going to be available for replay on our YouTube channel. So if you're watching us on Instagram, you're going to be able to watch the replay only on our YouTube channel and, of course, on RxMuscle.com. Let's go to our questions. We start on the Muscle Central forum and go to Mikey Cakes. Dave and Sid, this show is so bad, I'd rather get gyno from drinking so much soy milk while claiming to be on a vegan diet. How do you feel about myostatin inhibitors on cycle?
You know, the whole concept behind myostatin inhibitors is they discovered that there was this protein that our body produces called myostatin, and this myostatin inhibits muscle growth. It blocks muscle growth. It stops it. It limits it. So the less myostatin you have, the more you grow, or the more easily you grow. And that's why they feel that people that are easy gainers in the gym, muscle-wise, will probably have very low myostatin. They did a study a number of years back. Victor Conti did it, and he tested all the professional bodybuilders. And of all the bodybuilders, Flex Wheeler came back as being myostatin negative, having no myostatin in his body, which is, I guess I can understand how that could be because he's got a lot of muscle in his body. He grows relatively easy. Having said that, you know, they came out with a host of drugs, or they're experimenting on coming out with a bunch of drugs that supposedly block myostatin to some degree. How much, we don't know. The ones that I've seen on the market, from follistatin to some of the other ones that are being sold on these peptide websites, are basically useless. They don't do anything. Save your money. I know that everyone says, oh, but there's this one peptide site that sells the good one, the real one, and it's 10 times as expensive, so it must be good. No go. Guys, save your money, okay? Don't buy these myostatin inhibitors. They don't work.
GCT 20,000, Dave, hate the show. Question, is there any spirituality podcast that you would recommend?
You know, it's a good question. I actually just was looking into that. I was looking to see, you know, I got into this whole podcast manager on my iPhone. It's been there since I've had it. I never really explored it, but I've been listening to a lot of reptile shows, and I like to listen to Heavy Muscle Radio, the rebroadcast while I'm in my car. And so I said, you know, rather than streaming it from the website like I am, why don't I just go to the podcast manager and subscribe? And, you know, that's something I recommend you guys do. If you like the Heavy Muscle Radio podcast, you can just go to your podcast manager. I know on Android they have something else you got to download, but on iPhones you just go to the podcast manager and you could actually subscribe. You put the Heavy Muscle Radio show and it comes up and you subscribe. And every time there's a new episode, it downloads it to your iPhone. It's so simple, or iPad, or whatever you want to do. Even to your computer you can do it. So I was thinking about, you know, I want to get back into doing some meditation now that I moved. I got a little more time. I want to, not that I have much time, but I want to make time to do some meditations. I wonder if they have a podcast for meditations. And Hay House, which is a renowned publishing company that publishes spiritual books, has their own like meditation podcast where you can actually subscribe to it. And there's a million different meditations from all the different, you know, spiritual writers on there. And I've been, I listen to them. I pick one. I'm going to pick this one today, and I'll just put my headset on, and I'll close my eyes, and I'll in the dark, and I'll listen to it for whatever it is. They go from anywhere from 5 minutes to 15, 20 minutes, and you just listen, and it's very relaxing. Now, I'm assuming also, I haven't checked, but they probably have spirituality podcasts too, in terms of people. I don't know, you know, Wayne Dyer died recently, but I'm sure he's got a whole bevy of podcasts on there. I know that what's her name, Esther Hicks, does a big one too, or I think they call it the Abraham Hicks podcast. But just put spirituality into the podcast manager and you'll get a million different hits on it. I don't know if we lost Sid there for a second. So, you know, we've all day long, Johnny, we've been having trouble with this, with the internet. I know I was doing an interview before with Greg Valentino and Joe Pietaro on their Muscle Sport magazine podcast, They have their own little. It's kind of like the Heavy Muscle TV show, only they do their own version of it on Muscle Sport TV. And Greg Valentino and Joe Pietaro, they talk to each other and they interview guests and they act crazy. And some segments are news related, and it's mostly just fun stuff. So they called in to me, and I was on their podcast. I don't know when it's going to air, but we did a little. I gave them an update on where I was in Florida and what I've been doing, and we talked about. Of course, we made fun of Steve Blackman. That's standard hat for their podcast. But I enjoy it. I listen to it. It's well edited. It's quick watching, and they're doing a good job. I like anyone that's being creative out there. I said, of course, I accused them of copying us, but copying is the like, what did they say? It's the greatest form of flattery. So. Good luck to them. I think we have Sid back. Sid, any more questions for Dave Palumbo today?
No, I think we're all done for the episode. No, our good buddy PTB, who always has good questions, has a relevant one, especially in light of what took place this weekend at the LA Fit Expo. And of course, we're talking about the brawl or near brawl between Rich Piana and his crew and Mack Truck and his crew. And of course, we have wall-to-wall coverage analysis right now on RxMuscle.com, including an interview yesterday with Alex from the 5% crew. Of course, Alex is the one that you see he kind of jutted at a couple of Mack Truck's guys and, ended up busting up his knees and all sorts of cheap shots here and there. But again, we get Dave's reaction, we get John Romano's reaction. So let's go to PTB's question, and he goes on to talk about bodybuilders talking tough but doing little. And his question is, who would you say are the real tough guys in pro bodybuilding, the guys who may not start fights but have the guts and skills to finish them? And could you share any legit stories?
It's funny that the real tough guys you don't know are tough guys because they don't talk about it, they don't do anything. But when something goes on, they're there and they respond. Probably one of the toughest guys, and he's an older guy now, but he's still pretty damn tough. One of the toughest guys that I know in our industry is my friend Charlie Arms. He's brutally intense. I mean, you do not want to cross this guy. He punches you in the face first and asks questions later. I mean, that's really what real fighters are about. I was talking to my friend Matt Bulkman. I don't know, he'll probably be watching this podcast. He texted me after the show because he fights, professionally, and he said, "Look, the rules of engagement are such as when someone takes off their ring or watch and someone looks like they're talking smack, like they're challenging you, you better be ready to fight." And so Rich wasn't ready to fight. So Rich is not a street brawler. He trains in the gym, hitting the bag and doing some MMA stuff, but he's not a fighter. I believe that Mack Truck is probably more of a street fighter than Rich is, because that's the way you fight. You don't telegraph that you're going to punch someone. You just punch him. That's how a fight goes down. So I don't know per se who the tough guys. I mean, Mel Chancey was a tough guy. He was the president of Hell's Angels. I'm sure he had plenty of fights in his day. I wouldn't want to mess with him. That would probably be the wrong guy to be starting trouble with. There's a lot of guys that can seriously handle themselves, and I'm not going to name names because they may not want to be named. But I'll tell you one guy, Derek Panza, who runs the MMA in Steve Weinberger's gym there at Beth Francis Powerhouse Gym. You don't want to mess with this guy, and he's at a lot of the shows. So once again, you won't know the guys that are dangerous. They'll just beat the crap out of you. So my take in life is to be kind to everyone, because you don't know who's who. And you know what? There's no reason to be nasty to anyone. Everyone has a gripe with that. Everyone who's ever worked for me, who doesn't work for me again, pretty much not again. And that's just the way life is. Not everyone agrees with what's going on with each other. And I'm sure that Rich and Mac, have history together, from what I understand. And maybe they don't want to talk about it in public, because if they would have, both of them would have come on the show and would have revealed exactly what was going on. So hopefully they can settle it behind the scenes. I personally believe that whole incident at the LA Fit Expo was done for pomp and circumstance. On hits, not even on Rich's, not only on Rich's and Mack Truck's YouTube, but on everyone else who reported on it, including us. So is all publicity good publicity? Probably.
You're watching Ask Dave on RxMuscle.com, brought to you by Species Nutrition. We go to Anthony Z. Actually, before that, Johnny, our producer, is telling us that we have fans watching us on Instagram and on YouTube from Australia. So right now, I believe it's about 8:15 a.m. their time. So appreciate you waking up early in the morning to catch us live. Let's go to Anthony. How did you tear your leg muscle? How painful was it? How long did it take for you to recover?
I tore it in 2012, and as Johnny can attest, I'm still recovering. It's 2017 already. I was in India, Delhi, India, New Delhi, India, covering the Sharu Classic, which I never got to cover. The day we got there like a day early. They brought us in to recover, and so Aaron Singerman and I went out and we went and touring India, and we bought all kinds of crazy trinkets and had a good time. And we came back, and Aaron's like, "I'm going to go get drunk," and I said, "Well, I'm not going to do that. That's not productive. I'm going to go to the gym," because it was a gym down the block. So I walked down the block into this gym. It looked like a gym out of the 1970s, but it was nice. It was clean. I worked out. I was, really tired because I was kind of jet lagged, and I was upstairs in the locker rooms, and I was walking down the steps, and they had this spiral staircase. It was made of marble, and it was all the same color, so you really couldn't see where one step started and one began. And because it was spiral, the steps were stacked. They weren't the same size, and I missed a step. And when I missed a step, I realized I was going to fall down the entire flight of steps and probably break my neck. So I grabbed the railing, and my leg landed like with my ankle turned, and so my quad couldn't support the weight of my body, and my quad just snapped, which at the time I didn't know. It just felt like my knee exploded. And obviously I flew back, and I got it fixed, and the guy who fixed it should have really used a tendon graft on it, but he didn't. So it retore. So 6 months later, it had never healed right, and I had to have it redone by another doctor. There was tons of scar tissue in there. 6 months after that, I had to have an arthroscopic surgery to clean out the scar tissue to get my range of motion back. I finally got my range of motion back, and the leg was never really great at that point, but at least I had my range of motion back, and I could bend it properly. And just one day I got up, like 2 years later, and there was a piece missing. I just felt it. My kneecap had a piece missing. There was a gap there. I went back to the surgeon. He said, "Yeah, it looks like we might have to do a revision." They did a revision surgery last March on it, and right now it's doing well. But I'm not pushing it because, like I did the last time with the rehab, I think the rehab was too intense for my leg. I think I'm a slow healer, so I am theoretically, I guess, better now. But I still don't feel comfortable walking steps without holding the rail. Like I'm not 100% yet. The muscle hasn't come back. It's slow, but you got to remember when you use a tendon graft, it's like putting the analogy of the game is like it's putting old rope to hold your quad. You have to wait till the new tendon kind of grows into the area, and I don't know. It could take sometimes up to 2 years. So I'm not pushing it for until 2 years after the surgery. So I'm almost at a year now. I'll wait another year before I really start, squatting and doing crazy stuff again. You got by the crowd when he was guest posing, and they bumped him. I think he twisted his knee, and now I heard he got surgery on his leg. Now I don't think it was not severe. He didn't tear his quad, but he might have torn some cartilage. So India, very.
Yeah, let's go to Antoine Morin Prevost on YouTube. Dave, hate the show as much as Sid hates to work out. Haha. Just like you can deplete glycogen locally, can you burn fat locally too? And would it be better to do full body workouts? So I guess we'll break this up. The first question, just like you can deplete glycogen locally, can you burn fat locally too?
It's almost impossible. In other words, if you think you're going to get a lean butt by doing 1,000 butt blasters a day, it ain't going to work. Because all weight training does is break down muscle tissue. It doesn't cause fat burning in the area. So your body is getting free fatty acid, local deposit of fat. Also, when you're doing weight training, it's not an endurance activity, so you're using carbohydrates as a fuel source anyway. So you can't spot reduce fat. That's the bottom line. Are there certain topicals and possible injectable things that might mobilize fat that can dehydrate the fat cells locally and make it, make the area look better, but you're not really burning fat specifically in a local situation. Even if you inject GH into a local region, you're not going to burn fat locally in that area. It must get into the bloodstream to do its thing. So that's a big misnomer a lot of people make, that they think that they can more. Sometimes that makes it worse because you're raising cortisol levels because you're stressing your body out too much, and you're not. After a certain amount, you're just wasting it, really. You're just getting side effects. So I think anyone that does more than like 5 or 6 IUs a day, I think is truly wasting it. To me, 3 to 4 IUs is a very effective, safe dosage.
Skater for life. Dave, your opinion on continuously changing compounds to avoid side effects. Example, Anadrol 2 days, Tren 2 days, Ment 2 days, Sunday off. Tony Huge is doing this. What is your opinion?
I like Tony Huge. I consider him a friend, actually. But he likes to do all kinds of weird, different stuff so that he can create new videos that people will watch, and they do. If a cockamamie crazy methodology like that worked, we would all do it. We would have figured it out years ago. You don't think that anyone has already tried all these crazy nutty protocols? Of course they have. Steroids have been around for 60 years, so maybe 70 years now. So everyone's experimented, and the tried and true best way to put muscle on, to get ready for shows, is regularity. Taking your base of testosterone with an anabolic, okay, and then as we get closer to a show, we put more anabolics in, keeping that base of testosterone. That's the best way to do it. When you start putting 18 different compounds in, taking one each day, all you're doing is getting your body used to all these different compounds. It's just overload. It's not going to do anything. It's making things confusing. In life, the most complex problems always have the simplest solutions. There's a reason for that, because it's not hard. When you make things difficult, okay, you're making problems for yourself. That's the best advice I can give you.
You're watching Ask Dave on RxMuscle.com. If you're watching us on YouTube, RxMuscle.com, the homepage, or on Instagram, we welcome you. We do this every week, 30-minute question and answer show with Dave Palumbo. Our producer, Johnny Styles, tells us that starting tomorrow, we're going to be launching a new feature simply called Throwback Thursday. We're going to be having some of our old classic videos from RxMuscle.com in the early days, the ones that are not right now on YouTube. We're going to start that feature, one classic episode every Thursday, Throwback Thursday. Check it out tomorrow on RxMuscle.com and, of course, on Instagram. Let's go to Derek Thiessen. Dave, your ideal prep length for a show. Would you keep prep around 12 weeks, or is it better to do a quicker, more aggressive prep?
I personally like 16 weeks. I like longer. I'd rather transition someone into it slower. Gives me more time. Some guys have or girls have a lot more fat to lose than others. Guys that are super lean, I might only do 10 or 12 weeks with them. But most people that start with me have a decent amount of fat, and the first 4 weeks I like to really work on getting the junk fat off them, and then once they get relatively lean, that fat is much harder to get off. So that requires a full 12 weeks. So to me, 16 weeks is ideal. I've gotten people ready for shows in 4 weeks, in 6 weeks, in 8 weeks, but I hate rushing. So if people give me a longer period of time, I always prefer that.
Mr. Lexus, we're now on our Instagram page again, our Instagram handle, official_RxMuscle. Mr. Lexus 1, what can I do for nerve pain in my lower right leg? Had back injury. After my first chiro session, the inflammation traveled down my leg. I have discomfort while leg pressing. What do you recommend?
Back injuries really suck, because what happens is you got to remember all the nerve roots that come out of the spinal cord. Okay, they come out of the spinal cord and they go through those vertebral processes that kind of line the spinal column. When those holes get closed off or inflamed or scarred over, and they start pressing on that nerve root, okay, it causes all kinds of havoc down the road. When I say down the road, that means where that nerve root goes. Now, when we're talking about the lower back, we're talking about the nerve roots that go down to the legs. So, there's not much you can do except try to reduce the inflammation around the nerve or what's causing this problem. So if it's an injury you had because of a car accident, there's really not a lot you can do. If it's a biomechanical problem with the alignment of your spine, make sure you wear custom orthotics in your shoes that you can get made from a podiatrist. Make sure you change your sneakers regularly. I was having Johnny will tell you, I was all twisted. I was screaming at him because on Muscle in the Morning, I look like I'm like standing like this to the side. And I truly believe it was my sneakers I was wearing. I said they weren't supporting me well. I think I was getting back strains because of that. And when I got my new sneakers, I've been wearing them for like a week or two now, and I feel way, way better. So biomechanics is super important. Obviously, get a massage, get some ART done in you, get adjusted from the chiropractor. you got to keep yourself healthy if you want to train heavy and put a lot of muscle on your body. It's not just going to the gym, it's the recovery process that's super important.
Dente_Prado. Now, this is a question, Dave, that we do get often, and you're on record. You've answered it many times, but of course, the fact that we do the show every week, no doubt we have new viewers who probably don't know your opinion on this. So we'll get your take on SARMs again, and that is your opinion on SARMs. Dente Preto wants to know.
So I've been getting a lot of questions on this too. Someone must be really pushing SARMs a lot online, because when I get a lot of questions, to my email, that means that people are watching someone talking about them and thinking that that's going to be the next great thing for them to do. Now, because SARMs are a little more available, legally, technically, I think a lot more people will flock to them, because there's no other options unless they're going to go steroids. I always tell people, if you're going to use SARMs, you might as well use anabolic steroids. The strongest SARM is probably 10 times weaker than the weakest steroid, which is Anavar. So they're not comparable to steroids, okay? If you're 100% natural and you use some SARMs, you'll probably get some gains, but it's not going to be anything comparable to taking even, like I said, one Anavar pill a day. So for most people, it's just not worth it. And since none of these things are controlled, you don't even know what you're taking. You're only taking you're taking the word for the person who's selling them to you, and the person that's selling to you is not regulated by anyone. Okay, there's no SARMs like on the market, like where you can go to the drugstore and get any at this point. So to me, it's a crapshoot at best. Once again, I'll give you the same advice I gave you about the myostatin inhibitors. Save your money.
Hamza wants to know, Dave, are you a fan of Thor? And if not, why?
When you say Thor, you mean the comic book character Thor?
Either the comic book character or Noah Syndergaard, the pitcher of the Mets.
I actually love the Thor movies. I think they're great. I mean, I love the whole hammer idea. That's to me is I was into playing Dungeons and Dragons when I was a kid, and Thor was considered one of the demigods or something like that, and so we always kind of encountered him while we played the game as in our minds, as my wife likes to say. No one can understand what anyone who was born before 19 or after 1980 doesn't understand what not having a computer around is like. So. That's what it was like. So I do like Thor. I like the Thor movies. I like the Thor character, and I even like Thor Bjornsson, who's the Mountain. He plays the Mountain in Game of Thrones, and he's a terrific strong man from Iceland.
Let's go to Lolo Laura 03. Hate the show. Actually, I hate all the RxMuscle shows. Hate Species Nutrition. Hate Sid, Johnny, and Dave too. Now my question is, what would you have against Johnny? I mean.
Well, that's a compliment, Sid. He's basically saying they really like Johnny because they have to tell us they hate it.
So the first question is, on DavePalumbo.com, are you out of raw cacao bars?
I unfortunately am out of raw cacao bars, and you know what? Now people are starting to diet, so everyone wants them, and it's the winter, so it's easy to ship them. I ran out. It's funny because I buy a ton of these things. They sit, and then they go in spurts. Like Stephanie McMahon, from the WWE, she loves the bars. So out of nowhere, she'll call me up and say, all right, give me 70 of them. I'm like, 70? Yep, 70. And then I'm wiped out. I don't have any for anyone else. But, who expected 70 to go in one shot? But she buys them every 6 months, whatever, every 8 months. So that's what happened. I'm out of it. And we're going to a new manufacturer with these things because they just take too long to do them. So I will have them in. I don't know when. I'm going to find out this week. So as soon as they go up, I will put them up on RxMuscle and we'll announce it on the show here.
Her second part is it okay for a female to stay on Testalize year-round to drive out extra estrogen and DHT?
Yeah, it actually is. I know I have a lot of women now. Initially, when I made the product, I told women not to take it, but I have a lot of women now using the Testalize product because they found that, number one, it helps with acne breakouts. It helps their hair stay thicker, okay? And it actually helps them harden up a little bit by getting rid of the extra estrogen. So I was pleasantly surprised when I saw how great it was working with women. And I've seen an uptick in sales to women. So that makes me feel, the formula is really solid.
Let's go to Nick Stein. Dave, love the show. When talking about HDL and LDL cholesterol particle size, what number will be considered a healthy LHDL level if the particles are bigger from steroid usage?
I don't know. I gotta be honest. Sometimes I just don't know the answer. I don't remember the ranges or anything like that. When you get your blood work back, they will show you ranges that are considered healthy, normal, and then abnormal. So just look at the blood work. Just have your doctors fax you the blood work. You can read it on there. I mean, I have people send me blood work all the time, and I don't remember the ranges on everything. There's a million tests. That's why they always put the normal range on these tests. The only normal range that's not accurate is vitamin D3. They say it's 35 and up. It should be over 50 and up. That's the normal range. Other than that, whatever's on the blood test results is usually very accurate.
Let's go to Jacked and Juicy. Dave, what do you think about carb cycling? Is it effective, and when is the right moment to try it?
I think everyone carb cycles to a certain degree. Like, when I diet people down, when I start them on a diet, usually they start with some carbs, but not on every day. So, like, some days may be protein and fat exclusively. Some days may be protein, fat, and carbs. Some days may be protein, vegetables, and carbs. So it depends how I start. But my philosophy of high protein, moderate fat never really changes. But the great thing about fat is it's stored, so you don't have to give it to people on every single day. What I do is vary the carb amounts. Now, off season, I try to keep carb content consistent. The reason is because if the person is not growing, okay, or they're getting too fat too quickly, I can adjust it. I don't want to vary it every single day because then I don't know what's working and what's not. Is it the low days that are good or is it the high days that are good? So off season, I'm consistent with carbs on a daily basis. Pre-contest, it doesn't matter. I'll vary carbohydrates.
D-Rock P87, do you feel the same taking a diuretic and dehydrating before a show as having a hangover from heavy drinking? I've noticed on a heavy drinking night, I wake up and like how my body looks in the mirror, even though my head feels and my body feels terrible.
Yeah, well, you got to remember, a hangover is nothing more than your brain being dehydrated. So if you dehydrate yourself so much so that your brain gets a little dehydrated, you're going to definitely have a headache. That's why, after you come home from a night of drinking, you really should guzzle as much fluids and vitamins as possible. I used to drink a protein shake before bed and take all my vitamins that I normally take on a daily basis. No matter how bad I felt, I would just gulp it down. And when I woke up in the morning, I always felt way, way better. The worst thing you do is come home and just pass out, because you're going to wake up with the worst headache because you're probably going to sleep dehydrated, and then you're going to wake up and you're going to be even more dehydrated. Now, some guys who take diuretics for too many days in a row on a contest diet will experience the headache too, and that's usually because they're over dehydrated. So to me, that's not a good sign. Although I've felt that way, getting ready for shows. Like toward the night show, I'm starting to get a little bit of a headache because I know I'm a little over dehydrated. So you got to play with that. You really don't want to get that dehydrated where your brain is starting to get lose fluid. Only because that means your body is pulling water from places that it normally wouldn't pull water from. We really only want the water coming out of the subcutaneous compartment, not the muscles in the brain.
You're watching Ask Dave, RX Television on RxMuscle.com. Let's go to Austin Thomas 8. Dave, I hate this show more than everyone else hates you wearing those black cargo shorts. If I'm on TRT, but I'm planning on running a cycle of DECA, well, I need to do the PCT like I normally do before I started TRT.
Well, if you're going to do DECA and test together, I'm assuming that's what he's saying. After you do that, I would probably do a little HCG. You don't have to do a long one, because if you're going to go right back on the HRT, hormone replacement dose after you do the DECA test cycle, it really doesn't matter. But sometimes, it's nice just to kind of bolster the HCG content. Johnny told me an interesting thing today, because Johnny's going to Titan Medical for his hormone replacement stuff. And the law, at least in Florida, is that you need to take HCG with testosterone. It's legal. Legally, they must prescribe HCG. It's part of the hormone replacement protocol.
Let's go to Grant Elliott. Dave and Sadiq hate the show. I'm 22 years old and had blood work done, and my test levels are 100 mg/dl. These are stable natural levels, yet I have a decent physique, decent strength, and continue to grow and get stronger, as well as have a healthy sex life with my wife. Ever heard of a scenario like this? Also, if you could do any bulk to contest prep during a cycle, what would it be?
I think he's asking me whether having low testosterone, why his low testosterone level is resulting in him feeling good. I believe that's the question, because he doesn't understand, even though he's low. The key is the longer you are low testosterone, okay, what happens is your androgen receptors become very receptive, and the amount of free testosterone your body has in the bloodstream that's not bound up is much higher. So your body compensates. Okay, you could have super high total testosterone, but it's the free testosterone that really dictates how you feel. So I think when you have lower testosterone, you have more free available and you have better androgen receptor receptivity. So you can respond to a lower dose and still feel good. That's why I think a lot of guys find out that they're low testosterone. They think it's from taking steroids. I think that their whole life they were low. They just never really knew it, because when they weren't taking steroids, everything just felt normal. And then they took a dose of steroids, and then after that, it didn't feel normal to them, and their bodies were not acclimated to it because they had been so desensitized to all those extra, hormones that they had been putting into their body exogenously. And so, as long as you stay on, you don't add anything into the equation, and you keep that low value, you'll feel normal and you'll be able to have sex and everything like that. It's only when you enhance yourself that you notice the difference.
Let's go to Scott.Trepto. What are your thoughts on preteens drinking a protein shake once a day to help them get more protein, especially if they're a picky eater and consume more pasta, breads, and sugars versus chicken or beef?
I think it's a great idea. I will give my son my protein shakes, isolized, when he's, when he gets to an age where I feel it's warranted, where I don't think maybe. Kids go through weird eating habits where they're not eating enough protein and they're eating too much junk. I would much rather him use a protein shake, even if I got to mix peanut butter or even if I got to blend fruit into it, to make him get enough protein. Because you know what? The bottom line is kids are the worst eaters. I'm trying to teach my kid to eat well. I know he likes avocados now. He eats fish. Who knows, in 5 years, he might say, I hate all this stuff, and he might not want to eat anything. But if protein shakes are because they taste good, are going to make him feel like, hey, this is great. Even if you put a little ice cream in there, who cares? The protein content alone, the quality of the protein is what's important.
Of course, yesterday was your son's first birthday. Did you do anything special for Logan?
We did. Grandma came over at 7 o'clock, and we had. I brought home a pizza from Don Anthony's here, and Logan ate almost the whole piece himself. Amanda, broke up all the pieces, and he ate the whole piece of pizza, which is amazing if you think about a 1-year-old eating a whole piece of pizza. And then he actually had his first taste of cake. We got a buttercream cake. I don't know if anyone has ever tried that. I'm not a dessert person, but even I liked it. And so he had a couple bites of that. I didn't want to put too much sugar in him because I don't want him bouncing off the walls. It was time for him to go to sleep, And we all sang happy birthday. You got to do this for the kid's first birthday. I have no footage, very few pictures. I have a couple pictures, but I don't have enough footage of me as a kid. I want Logan to have, every single year I want him to have tons of stuff that he could look back on and say, oh, this is when I was 1 and this is when I turned 2, because it's something that, when you get older, that's when you really want to see it.
We'll take one more question. This one from Wilhelm Zayed. High molecular weight carbohydrate drinks to take post-workout.
I make a product called Carbs that a lot of people love and use. It's a high molecular weight carbohydrate, which means it's large. It's a large molecule size. The advantage of that, for some reason, without going into the physics of it, it empties from the stomach quicker than sugar does. So you don't get bloated from using a high molecular weight carbohydrate. It's sugar-free, too. That's another great thing about high molecular weight carbs. Now, not all of them are, because some people add sugar to their post-workout carb shakes. So even though they're buying a drink mix, they think it's only high molecular weight, but they actually have dextrose in there, or they have other sugars in there. Dextrans, cyclic dextrans, those are sugars, okay? High molecular weight carbs like Vitargo, waxy maize, high weight amylopectin. These are when you don't flavor these things, they taste like potato starch, essentially. They taste like starch. They don't taste like anything, chalk almost. The flavoring system is the artificial flavoring system we put in there. But the advantage, once again, is that they empty from the stomach quickly. They draw nutrients with them because of their large size. They have a pulling effect on nutrients. And I just find that they're terrific post-workout at reglycogenating the muscle fast without causing stomach upset and without making you feel terrible like you don't want to eat the rest of your night. Because the key is you want to take at least 50 grams of whey isolate, for most guys over 200. You want to take about 50 grams of whey isolate. You want to take about 40 grams of carbs, high molecular carbs, post-workout in your shake. Get those in right when you leave the gym, and then by an hour and a half later, you can eat a meal. But if the stuff is sitting in your stomach making you feel terrible, then who the hell wants to do that? Now, the problem with the high molecular weight carbs, a lot of them is they don't mix well because they're so thick. They get goopy and stick to the bottom of the shaker cup. I micronized our carbolized product so that it's almost like baby powder and it mixes really easily. So once you get it into solution and swig it around, you can just use your finger if you want. It stays in solution. So it's not going to make it hard to drink. It goes down easy, and we have great flavor. So I'm pretty proud of our high molecular weight carb. But there are other good ones on the market as well.
That's going to do for this episode of Ask Dave, brought to you by Species Nutrition. Once again, visit speciesnutrition.com. If you've been watching us on Instagram, the replay of this episode is going to be available within minutes on our YouTube channel and, of course, on RxMuscle.com. For our producer, Johnny Stiles, and Dave Palumbo, I'm Sadiq Faruqi. We'll see you next week.